Before he was the father of a nation, he was a soldier fighting to survive. A single misstep thrusts young George Washington into the center of a global conflict, testing his honor, loyalty, and courage. Joining us now with more on the upcoming movie, Young Washington, is co-screenwriter Tom Provost. Hey, Tom, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Certainly. Excited to talk about this film. So, from what I understand, Young Washington explores George Washington before he became a legendary figure. So what interested you most about telling the story of Washington as a young man still discovering who he was?
It was a vision of our director, John Irwin, who is this amazing filmmaker. And his belief and our belief is that when you look at the great men and women of our country and in history, and there are many, it's easy to just look at them as these figureheads, but what made them great? And so this movie explores what happened to, we call him George, but President Washington, what happened to him before he became this man, and his life was filled with strife and failure. He didn't get the girl he wanted, but it all made him a much better man.
Well, and the film arrives as America is approaching its 250th anniversary. Great timing. Why do you think audiences are hungry right now for stories about the nation's founding and leadership?
I mean, as we call it, the experiment of the United States of America, we're here 250 years later. We may have problems, but we are still a great country. And I think it's important for us to look back at our history and see how we started and why. And we in particular think young audiences will really love this movie because it shows someone they can relate to who is their age, who is going through enormous strife. It's a very uplifting movie when you see the enormous difficulty he went through, and yet he still survived. It helps me get through the day when I have a bad day, thinking even George got through a bad day, much worse than I'm going through, right?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
You know, it's interesting because I always picture George Washington already as an adult, grown-up president of the United States, right? And so we're seeing images of him as a young man, and it's just kind of striking to think of him. And so I'm certain that it's going to resonate with those younger audiences. Tom, in bringing this story, one of the most important figures in U.S. history up to the screen, maybe talk about some of the biggest challenges that you all had to overcome.
Usually as a writer, the challenge is trying to figure out how to take a real story and make it into a movie. And so people often have to change things. I was shocked when I looked at his life from 18 to 22. It is a movie. We barely had to change anything. We had to compact a few things timeline-wise, but he went through so much adventure. The movie is an action adventure. This is not like some documentary you're going to watch on the History Channel. There's battle scenes, there's romance, it's like a big Titanic kind of movie. And it was actually a little bit easier for me as a writer because I was like, oh, I just have to tell the story of what happened to him. And there it is.
That's incredible. So Young Washington, it highlights the themes of integrity, service, and resilience. What do you hope specifically that those younger audiences do take away from watching this film?
As we show, he started off as a very ambitious, egocentric young man. And there's nothing wrong with having ambition at all. But all the choices he was making initially were about himself. And through a lot of failure, one of the themes of the movie is that failure is God's tutor. And through his failure, he realized he needed to focus on the people around him, not himself. And that's what turned him into such an amazing servant leader, where he was always putting the country and the people around him first. And that, I mean, look, I'm older than a young person, and I still need to learn that lesson every day. So it's a very inspiring movie that way. It teaches all of us to put other people before us.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a lesson we definitely are all learning.
Star-studded cast there. We're seeing clips. And there's often this misperception maybe, and you kind of cleared this up, that historical films feel distant or academic. How did you make this one emotionally relevant for viewers?
It's just that he was such an amazing, interesting young man, and even though it's 200, so many years ago, he's still going through the same things any of us when we're teenagers and in our early 20s go through. So it's very relevant, and it takes him off a pedestal, off the dollar bill, and turns him into a real person that, even as we show in the movie, you can just sit down and have a beer with.
Yeah. I love that. Thanks for joining us. I am too. Thanks for joining us today, Tom. We appreciate it. Can't wait to see Young Washington. Absolutely.